Hey, what's up, Culture Drop? This week we are doing something very different, talking about COVID and return to work and office policies and all things returning to work COVID. And I'm interviewing a colleague of mine, Tina Radicke. She is brilliant in the HR space. She's a deep subject matter expert in this area. She's worked for Electronica Arts, Tory Burch, Nike in sort of bigwig leadership HR roles. So talking with her, we're gonna take a snippet of that conversation and use that for the video this week that you're about to watch, but we're gonna post a link to the full conversation that we're gonna put out on YouTube. So if you wanna see the whole conversation and everything we cover, that will be available. Okay, that's it. I love you. Here it is. Do you want to hit us with some like high points recap in terms of like best practices, just like sum everything up in terms of like what are the points that we hit on?
Yeah, I'm happy to recap things. I think for me, there are kind of 4 key things to remember. Number 1 is lead with flexibility and transparency. Whether that's communicating with employees, whether it's designing policies, those should be the filters that you're running everything through right now as a leader. Number 2 is that as you're designing policies for a post-COVID office environment, that those policies are thoughtful, they are defensible, and they're consistent. And that they're primarily focused on the work or the job, not on a personal circumstance. Number 3, as you start to get into more sensitive topics like vaccines, whether you're going to require them or not, or certain accommodations for people, those are conversations that you want to have HR and either your legal partner or a lawyer who's familiar with your business as a part of those conversations to consult. And the final point, which is more of an overarching reminder, and we've touched on this kind of periodically throughout this conversation, is this moment in time and this experience that we've gone through collectively in the last year is probably the closest we've ever come to having the work environment intersect with people's personal views, people's political views, people's views, whether they're based in religion, their views around medicine. There's so much kind of crashing into each other in this moment. And so as a leader and as an organization, like you have to create space for that. It doesn't mean that you have to accept and accommodate every opinion, but you have to recognize that people are just coming from different places in their experience in the pandemic. And whether that is rooted in something they've always believed or whether it's rooted in the experience they've had in the past year, people are just going to come at this from a different place. And so, this is essentially a giant exercise in change management. And so allowing for that and leaning into the principles of change management as people come back to work is going to serve you well. The worst thing you can do in this moment is just pretend like none of this ever happened and just force people back into business as usual. Business is not usual. That doesn't exist anymore. And so leaders are going to have to lean into the soft skills that allow them to recognize personal differences. They're going to have to create space for people to feel different things. And they're also going to have to be really clear with their employee base about what is okay at work and what is not okay at work. And if something is not okay at work, what are the ramifications or the consequences of that, right? So that's, again, I bring you back to the point around like flexibility and transparency in everything that you do, because this is going to take some time for people to adjust to being back in the office and to being productive in that type of environment when they're so used to such a completely different way of working.
Right. Whereas much as like immediately everybody's working from home now with such a huge shift and like disruption of like how we work, bringing people back to the office is also another huge shift and disruption. Like now I'm used to like sitting on my couch and I can take a nap for 30 minutes every day during my break, and it's such a shift again. So like having some grace. And I think important with what you said is like, because people on a personal, individual, religious, whatever level, political, are like clashing, it's like also an important reminder to be like, this is a time to extend some grace. Like, how do you treat people you disagree with? And I think if that's like so important to culture and like laying those ground rules and with what you said, it's like, what's acceptable, what's not? It's like, how do we treat other people that we disagree with and have conflict with, right? And like being very intentional about those behaviors and how we show up. Thanks for watching and tuning in. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have our weekly email list, The Culture Drop. You can subscribe to that and get these emails right in your inbox. Follow our social media channels. Put out a lot of free content around being more awesome and building great teams.